The day of Ashura is upon us, and as such, we turn to recall the events that took place on this horrendous day and focus specifically on the killing and assassination of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Today, the day of Ashura is not about the ideology or the philosophy or the deep teachings of the university that emanates from the events of Karbala. Today is about the events themselves. Today is when you focus on the blood of Karbala. Today is when you focus on the lives that were lost in Karbala. Today we have heard so many lectures during the Ashura about dignity, about respect, about justice, freedom, sincerity, understanding, patience. We have taken all these lessons from the University of Karbala. But today is about the blood. Today is about the events. Today is about the lives that were lost so that these ideologies could come to us. Today is not about the ideologies. We have the whole year to learn about that. We have learned about that for the whole Ashura. But today we focus on those lives that were lost on the plains of Karbala on this very day, at this very time, when the companions of Abu Abdullah were slaughtered mercilessly. Throughout the centuries, we hear Imam Hussein's call loud and clear, Hayhat min al-dhillah. We refuse to live in humiliation for the millions dying everywhere in Africa, in Syria, in Yemen. These words ring out loudly that we will not suffer, we will not succumb to those who try to humiliate us. Instead, we will live with dignity and be killed. Today we remember those events, those specific killings. For even in this lecture, we cannot give justice. We cannot give justice to the death of these individuals, these personalities. We can recount it in some detail, but we cannot understand. We cannot comprehend how mercilessly these personalities were slaughtered. And the only way to get close to understanding these personalities and what they went through is to read the Maqtal of the day of Ashura. And then only you will understand what happened to these personalities. On the dawn of the day of Ashura, Imam Hussain leads the morning prayers among his companions. Then he got up and started speaking to them. He begins the day with the thankfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My Imam knows this is the day that he and his family and his near and dear ones will be slaughtered. But he starts the day with these words. Indeed, Allah the Exalted gave permission for you and I to get killed on this day. So you have to be patient and fight. This is the personality of Abu Abdullah. Following this, he gives the commandership of the right wing to Zuhair ibn Qayn and the commandership of the left wing to Habib ibn Mudahir. And he gives the banner to Abu Fadl al-Abbas, who he tells to stay with his family members in the center of the army. This is that Abbas that on Siffin, they could not tell whether this is Ali or Abbas when he came to the battlefield. But Imam Hussain orders him to stay with the family, to stay in one spot and to hold the banner. And we see that Abbas does not waver from the commands of Imam Hussain. Umar ibn Sa'ad marches towards Imam Hussain. This is shortly after Fajr. He has no patience. He wants to get the job done. He wants to slaughter these innocent people. He keeps Umar ibn al-Hajjaj on the right, Shibr ibn Zawjashan on the left, and then he appoints other commanders like Uzra ibn Qais and Shibat ibn Rabi'. All these people deserve our la'nat on this day for taking the side of Umar ibn Sa'd. And what terrible people these were. They came roaming close to the tents. Nothing has happened yet. They are just coming close to the tents to do what? To intimidate. To intimidate Abu Abdullah and the ladies. They make a small fire. And Shimr says to Imam, you have rushed to this fire before the day of Qiyamah. These are the words he's saying to the grandson of Rasulullah, that this is the fire that is in your destiny. Imam Hussain observes the size of the army of Yazid to be at least 30,000. When he observes this, Imam Hussain, what would you think somebody would do when they saw 30,000 people facing their small family? They would try to escape. They would try to run. They would try to find a refuge. They might try to reach some understanding. You know, when we walk from Najaf to Karbala, we come to a point, near the Al-Kafil hospital, for those who have done it. We come to a point and the guides tell you that these Nishan here is where the army of Yazid reached. And you are tired from walking, so you say, now we must be close to the Haram. The army reached this far, so how far can we be from the Haram? No, you still have 3 to 4 hours of walking. You can imagine on the outskirts of Karbala how far the army of Yazid reached. That when you are walking to the Haram of Imam Hussain, you have 3 to 4 hours still to go. That's how far the army reached. But Imam Hussain observes the size, and you know what he says. Remember this dua, because when we face calamity, this is the dua we should remember. Oh Allah, you are my trust in every calamity. This is the response of Imam when he sees an army of at least 30,000, maybe more. Oh Allah, you are my trust in every calamity and hope in every difficulty. And you are for me in every matter that falls upon me a trust and a preparer. How many difficulties in which the heart becomes weak, opportunities become scarce, friends let us down and the enemy mocks, that I leave them to you and complain to you out of my interest for you over anyone other than you, and you relieved me and pushed those difficulties away from me. Subhanallah. Instead of complaining about his difficulties, Imam tells Allah, you pushed difficulties away from me. On the day of Ashura, these are the words of Hussain. This is why we gravitate to Hussain on this day. And we say, Labbaika ya Hussain. After the dua, Imam gives a speech in which he says many things. And these speeches are worth reading. Because Imam was not giving these lectures to these mal'oon. He knew that these people are not going to budge. These speeches are saved for them, for us to reflect on. He talks about his ancestry. He talks about his station, his maqam, and asks them to consider who he is. Oh people, look at my ancestry. Am I not the son of your prophet's daughter and the son of his successor, his cousin, the first faithful person in Allah? Is not Hamza the uncle of my father? Is not Ja'far al-Tayyar my uncle? Did the saying of the messenger of Allah about my brother and I not reach you? These are the leaders of the youth of paradise. Is referring to the saying of Rasulullah, Sayyidai Shababi Ahlil Jannah. These were the saying of Rasulullah about Hassan and Hussein. He's reminding them, giving them an opportunity, but more for us to know who that Imam is. Shimr says, he worships Allah like a fringe believer. This is the response of Shimr to the speech of Imam Hussain. Today the speech of Imam Hussain moves us, but Shimr says he worships like a fringe believer. Habib ibn Mudahir replies to Shimr, look at the courage. This is Habib ibn Mudahir, he's an old man. You would think he would just be quiet, but his courage says, by Allah, I swear that you do not even know how to worship Allah. I bear witness that you are truthful in not understanding what He is saying. For Allah has blinded your heart. Zuhair ibn Qayn addresses the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Burayr al-Hamadani addresses the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, but they mock him, saying they did not understand what he is saying. Instead, they shot a big arrow at him, so he retreated. Imam Hussain addresses the army again, reminding them of his position and reminding Umar ibn Sa'ad that he would not get the rewards that Yazid promised him. And this came true, because Umar ibn Sa'ad never got Sultanate of Rai, which had been promised to him by Yazid. Hur ibn Yazid al-Riya hears the words of Imam Hussain. He comes to Umar ibn Sa'ad and he says to Umar ibn Sa'ad, are you seriously going to fight against the grandson of Rasulullah? Umar says with arrogance, yes, by Allah, a war in which at the very least heads and hands will be severed. Hur says, what about the options he offered you? Umar says, no, we are not accepting. Then Hur and his friend ask Umar ibn Sa'ad, did you give your horse water today? Umar ibn Sa'ad said, by all means, I have fed all my horses water and food. They said, Hussein and his family have not had water while you have given water to your animals. At this point, Hur became silent and started trembling. He says to himself, I am debating within myself whether to choose paradise or whether to choose hell. And if anything, today I will choose paradise, even if it involves my getting burned. Hur leaves the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad and comes towards Imam Hussain. He says, O Allah, I'm repenting to you to forgive me. I frightened the hearts of your chosen creation and the children of your prophet. O Aba Abdullah, I am repenting. So do I have a chance for forgiveness? Imam Hussain replies, yes, Allah forgives you. Salawat. Umar ibn Sa'ad tries to make a compromise with Abbas. He calls Abbas because he is related to Abbas through his mother. Abbas refuses. Hazrat Abbas says to Umar ibn Sa'ad, go, get up. May Allah have mercy on you to death from which there is no escape. At this point, the companions of Imam Hussain start to get attacked by the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. The speeches are over. The combat starts. When this combat starts, the companions of Imam Hussain, who are very angered by these speeches, get killed. 50 of them are killed right away. One of the commanders goes out and successfully attacks a flank of Yazid. Two cousins, Saif and Malik al-Surai, go out and attack another flank of Yazid. Umar ibn Sa'ad retreats a little bit, even though it was him who had shot the first arrow. A group of 4 companions of Imam Hussain then goes out and fights bravely, killing many enemies, but they get wounded badly. Their names are Umar ibn Khalid, Jabir ibn al-Harith, Majma' ibn Abdullah, and one of their servants. They go out and they are wounded. They kill many of the mal'oon, but they are wounded. So they are coming back to get help from Imam Hussain alayhi salam. But as they are coming back, they get ambushed. Look at the mercilessness of the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. They even attack those who are wounded. When they attack them and ambush them, these 4 brave companions get killed. Imam Hussain alayhi salam looks at these 4 companions and starts crying. And he says, by Allah, I will not succumb to any of their demands until I meet my Lord covered in my blood. Then he calls out, is there anyone to help us? There were 2 brothers who were in the camp of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Their names were Sa'd ibn al-Harith and Abdul Hutuf. These 2 soldiers were soldiers of Umar ibn Sa'ad. When they hear the words of Imam Hussain, they leave the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad and come towards Imam Hussain. But unfortunately, they get killed. Following the death of these companions, some more prominent people start to get killed. A group of them attacked Muslim ibn Awsaja, who fought bravely but was killed. One of the commanders of Umar ibn Sa'ad says, we have killed Muslim ibn Awsaja, we should celebrate. Another commander says, we should not celebrate. A man like Muslim is killed and you are rejoicing. He is one of the companions of Rasulullah. Another group by Shimr attacks Abdullah ibn Umayr al-Kalbi and he gets killed. His wife Wahab runs to his body, but she is killed as well on the order of Shimr. And how brutally she is killed. She is hit on her head with a pillar until she dies, and she becomes the first female martyr of Karbala. The next companion to fall is Wahab ibn Habab al-Kalbi. Shimr then reaches the Khayma and tries to set it on fire. At that point, his own commanders tell him, have you become an attacker of women? And Shimr retreats. But as he retreats, he leaves behind a few fires. Imam Hussain says, let them burn the tents, because the fire might prevent them from getting to you. As the time of Dhuhr approaches, the enemy does not let Imam even make preparations for the Salat of Dhuhr. And as the Imam indicates that he wants to offer his prayers, they mock the Imam, saying, your prayers are not going to be accepted. Habib ibn Mudahir replies, how can you say that the prayers of the grandson of Rasulullah, from the progeny of Rasulullah, cannot be accepted? In response to this, they attack Habib ibn Mudahir and kill him. Imam offers Dhuhr prayers as Salatul Khawf, protected by Zuhair ibn Qayn and Sa'id ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi. At the end of those Zuhur prayers, Zuhair ibn Qayn is badly wounded and Sa'id was killed in the process of protecting Imam. What an honor for these 2 men to protect the Imam in his prayers. One by one, companions of the Imam fought and fell. Zuhair ibn Qayn was wounded badly. He did not live much longer. Burayr ibn Hamadani, who was a Quran teacher, who was a companion of Rasulullah, who was one of the closest people that was present during the time of Rasulullah and Imam Ali alayhi salam was killed. The wife of the killer of Burayr tells him when he goes home that night, how could you kill the companion of a prophet and the master of all Quran reciters? Hantala ibn Sa'ad falls. Abis ibn Shadib falls. Shawdab, the servant of Shakir, falls. John, the servant of Abu Dhar al-Ghaffari, falls. Imam Hussain says to John, "Oh John, you came with us so that we can care for and protect you. How can you leave me?" He falls on Imam Hussein's feet, kissing them, saying, "At the time of ease I ate with you, and then at the time of difficulty, how can I leave you?" Anas ibn Harith al-Kahili was an old man. He was also a companion of Rasulullah. He was killed mercilessly. Umar ibn Janada was another companion. He was also killed. And his son was also killed. He was only 11 years old. Then the families turned to the armies, the enemies turned to the family of Abu Abdullah. And who does Imam send out first from his own family? He sends out his own son. Ali Akbar goes out first from the family of Abu Abdullah. One of the Mal'un, Murra ibn Muqayd al-Abidi, says, "I deserve the burden of all the sins of the Arabs if I do not hurt Hussein with the loss of Ali al-Akbar." He hit Ali Akbar from behind with a spear in his chest and hit his head with a sword, such that he cut Ali al-Akbar's head. Ali al-Akbar embraces his horse. It carries him to the camp of the enemies. So they surround him from all sides, cutting his body into pieces. Ali Akbar calls, "Salam to you, O Abu Abdullah. I see my grandfather, and he's given me a drink with his glass, after which I will not ever become thirsty. There is a glass ready for you." Imam Hussain comes and throws himself on Ali al-Akbar, keeping his cheek on Ali al-Akbar's cheek, saying, "The world is not worth living in after you. How dare they are angering Allah and attacking the sanctity of the messenger. It is difficult on your grandfather and your father that you call them and they do not respond to you." He then filled his hand with Ali Akbar's blood and threw it to the sky. Not a single drop came back down to the ground. Imam Hussain orders his family members to carry the body of Ali Akbar to the tent. So they carried him to the tent they were fighting in front of. The women of the Prophet's family saw him being carried on a cloth covered in his blood, and his body is cut into pieces from the swords. They gathered around him, beating their chests, exposing their hair in the camp, and shouting in grief with a cry that is carried across the universe. But what they did after that was even worse. The enemies turned to the descendants of Abu Talib. Abdullah, son of Muslim ibn Aqil, was their next target. He fought bravely in 3 attacks, but they killed him brutally. When Abdullah ibn Muslim was killed, the progeny of Abu Talib attacked together all at once. Imam Hussain called them, "Be patient as you face death. I swear by Allah, you will not see any difficulty after this day." Several of them were killed. Aoun, who is the son of Abdullah ibn Ja'far and Bibi Zainab alayha salam, and his brother Muhammad. Abdul Rahman, brother of Muslim ibn Aqil. Muhammad, son of Muslim ibn Aqil, son of Imam Hassan al-Hassan al-Muthanna, who received several wounds. Muhammad, another son of Imam Ali. Abdullah ibn Aqil, brother of Muslim ibn Aqil. Abdullah al-Bakr, son of Imam Hassan. And then Qasim, the young son of Imam Hassan, who was just attaining the age of maturity. He too was killed while his mother watched. When the dust settled, Imam Hussain was sitting with Qasim's head on him. Qasim's feet were still moving. Imam Hussain says, "May the people who killed be distanced from Allah's mercy, and your father will be their enemies on the day of judgment. Imam Hussain then carried him on his chest while Qasim's feet were touching the ground and brought him next to Aliyun al-Akbar. He then raises his head to the skies and prays, "O Allah, count them all as enemies and do not leave any one of them." By the death of Qasim, Imam Hussain was tired. Abbas was no longer able to stay back. If you take yourself to Karbala, you know that my Imam has been walking from one maqam to the other. You know where Ali Akbar fell. You know where all the companions fell, and you know where all the khaymas were. Picture yourself on a day hotter than this in Karbala. Imam has been walking back and forth to each of those places. When we have to walk there just a short distance in the heat, we get tired and we need water just to visit the maqams of these personalities. But Imam has walked back and forth many times. Imam then orders Hazrat Abbas to fetch water for the children. Abbas had to do something. At this point, Abbas has been restrained for too long. Abbas tries to get the water, but 4,000 men surrounded him and shot him with arrows. He was not threatened by their numbers. He attacked them with his sword until the men dispersed away from him. He reaches the water. He took some water, but he remembered the thirst of Imam Hussain and those who were with him. So he dumped the water and headed back, fighting off all the tyrants until they ambushed him and cut off his arms one by one, and then attacked the bag of water with his arrows. After his hands were cut off and his face attacked by arrows, Abbas falls to the ground and cries for the Imam to come. When Imam Hussain gets to Abbas, Abbas says, "Master," because he always calls Imam Hussain his master. And he says, "Don't take me back to the khayma. Leave me here. Let me lie here." Imam Hussain says to him, "Abbas, how can I leave you here?" Abbas says, "When people visit you, they will have to visit me first. I will always be protecting you, Ya Aba Abdullah." Today when we walk and we arrive in Karbala from Najaf, the first stop we make is to Hazrat Abbas. And that is when the guides tell us, "You have walked for 3 days. Your feet are covered in blisters. You are tired. But the next walk you have to do is the hardest walk you will ever do." We say to him, "How much walking is left? We have covered Najaf to Karbala. We have overcome thirst. Our legs are okay. How much more walking do you have to do?" And they say the hardest walk is from Abbas to Hussain. Because take yourself back to Karbala. Take yourself back to Karbala when Hussain has to walk back to the khayma and answer to Zainab and Sakina when they say, "Why did you leave Abbas there?" Imam Hussain walks across that Bainul Haramain. Today we walk there, we think it is easy, but that was the hardest walk for Aba Abdullah al-Hussain. Abbas says, the wish of Sakina was not fulfilled by me. I could not bring the water." At that point a voice goes out and says, "Ya Abbas, now you are Babul Hawaij. Everyone that makes a wish through you, Abbas, all their wishes will come true." Hussain was now alone. But there was one more death he had to see before he attained his own martyrdom. He asks for his baby Aliyun al-Asghar to say farewell to him. Zainab brought his son Abdullah, whose mother was Rabab. He sat him on his lap, kissing him and saying, "Distanced are these people when your grandfather will be their enemies." He carries him and brings him to the enemies, asking for water. This is when Harmala ibn Kahil al-Asadi shot him with an arrow that pierced his neck, while on the hands of his father, Imam Hussain filled his hand with the blood of the baby and threw it to the skies, and not a drop of that came back. He then came back to the tent of Zainab carrying the slain baby. In the Amal of Ashura today we walked back and forth 7 times, saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, ridan biqawaihi wa tasliman bi amri. Imam Hussain could not face the mother of Ali Asghar when he comes back. Now Imam is alone. Ali Asghar is gone. Aliyun al-Akbar is gone. Abbas is gone. At this point, Imam Hussain moves towards the people, waving his sword and calling them to fight. He fights and kills many of the mal'oon. He attacks the right wing of the army, saying, death is better than disgrace, while disgrace is better than entering the fire. He attacks the left wing of the army, saying, I am Hussein, son of Ali. I swore not to give up defending the family of my father, going on the path of the religion of the Prophet. Abdullah ibn Ammar ibn Yahud says, I have never seen a person devastated by the killings of his children, family members and companions, more steadfast, brave and perseverant. Men were running away from him as he attacked them, and no one remained in his way. Umar ibn Sa'd yells at the army, this is the son of Ali. Surround him from all sides. He is the son of the killer of the Arabs. 4,000 arrows came towards Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and the enemies surrounded his tent. He said to them, O followers of Abu Sufyan, if you do not follow any religion and do not fear the day of resurrection, then at least be free in your world and go back to your ancestors if you are Arabs as you claim. The enemies attacked him and his thirst became very severe. So he headed towards the Furat, attacking 4,000 men who were headed by Umar ibn al-Hajjaj. He dispersed them from the river and entered with his horse into the river. He tells his horse, you are thirsty and so am I. I will not drink until you do. Zuljana raises its head as if it understood what the Imam had said. When Imam put his hands into the river to drink from the water, Shimmer says loudly, look, he has reached the water. We cannot let him drink. Let us tell him that the women are being attacked. Shimmer shouts, you are enjoying water while your women are being looted. Imam Hussain leaves the river and runs back to the camp, only to find that Shimmer had been lying to him all along. He then bid a second farewell to his family members and ordered them to be patient. He turns towards his daughter Sukaina and saw her crying. He came to her telling her to be patient and comforted her. Umar ibn Sa'd yells again and he says, woe upon you Arabs! Attack him now that he is busy with his family. I swear by Allah, if he comes back to you, he will turn the right wing of the army to the left. They got an opportunity. They attacked with arrows. Some of the arrows pierced the tents as the Imam was bidding farewell to the women, tearing off some of the clothes that the women were wearing. The women became shocked and started shouting. Imam Hussain attacked them like a fierce lion. He came out and struck anybody he could. They continued to shower him with their arrows from all sides until there were arrows on his chest, on his back, on his neck, on his legs. He was tired. He returned back to his position, saying, "No turn, nor power, but through the power of Allah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." In such a condition, he asked for some water. Shimr says, "You will not taste it until you enter the fire." A man called, saying, "O Hussein, do you see the Furat running swiftly? You will not drink from it until you die." Imam Hussain prays, "May this man die thirsty." The men, after the tragedy of Karbala, could never quench his thirst no matter how much water he drank, and he died thirsty. At that point, Abu al-Hutuf al-Ju'fi, this mal'oon, shoots an arrow to Imam that strikes his forehead. Imam takes out the arrow from his forehead. His face is covered in blood. He says, "Oh Allah, do you see those disobedient servants of yours? Count them all and kill them individually. Oh wicked nation, what a terrible way to repay Muhammad and Ali Muhammad." At that point, he became too tired to fight. His forehead was bleeding. His body was covered with arrows from head to toe. Another mal'oon comes with a rock and throws it on his forehead, making the bleeding from his face worse. He lifted his shirt to wipe the blood from his eyes. As he lifts his shirt, one of the archers sees that a bare chest as a target for his three-pronged arrow. He shoots Imam in the chest. Imam falls down. He pulls the three-headed arrow from his back and the blood comes gushing out. He fills his hand with blood, throws it to the sky. Not a drop came back. He fills his hand with blood, colors his head, face, and beard with it, saying, "This is how I will be until I meet Allah and my grandfather, the messenger of Allah, and I am covered with my blood, and I will say, this is how they killed me." The bleeding made him tired, so he sat on the ground, heavily lifting his neck. Malik ibn al-Nisr came to him while he was in such a state, insulting him with words and hitting him on the head more. The blood filled his clothes. He took off some of his shirt and used that as a scarf to cover the bleeding of his head. At this point, his nephew Abdullah, the son of Imam Hassan, who was only 11 years old, could not see this. He ran towards his uncle. Zainab tried to stop him, but he ran. He came to his uncle. They tried to stop him, but he says to them, "Are you hitting my uncle?" A man called Bahar hits the young boy with a sword, and the boy used his arm for his protection, but it was cut. Abdullah cries, "Uncle," and falls onto the chest of Imam Hussain. Imam Hussain says, "Oh, my nephew, be patient on what has happened to you and expect blessings from this, for surely Allah the Exalted will make you with your virtuous ancestors." Harmala sees that young boy on the chest of Imam Hussain, and you know what Harmala does to young people. He shoots the young boy with an arrow, and the son of Imam Hassan is killed. Imam Hussain remains lying on the ground for a while. We don't know how long. Zainab is until Zainabiyah. She does not know if Imam Hussain is alive or he is dead. She yells out to him, "Give me my qasam and say if you are alive." He does not reply. Then she says, "Swear on yourself if you are alive or not," and he does not reply. Finally she says, "I swear upon my mother Fatima Zahra, if you are alive, please tell me that you are alive." At that point, Imam Hussain whispers, "You have given me the qasam of Fatima Zahra, my mother. Yes, I am still alive." Hilal ibn Nafi says, "I was standing next to Hussein as he was dying. By Allah, I never saw one dying who is covered in blood, with a face shining with light and better looking than him, and radiating nur like him. The light of his face kept me busy from thinking about killing him." Imam Hussein, knocking at the door of death, asks again for some water, but they refuse him. A man says, "You will not taste water until you go to the hellfire and taste its boiling heat." At this point, Umar ibn Saad says, "We have to end this now. We have to go and finish the business that we have to do." At this point, Imam Hussein's horse Zuljana leaves Imam Hussein, realizing it has nowhere to go. The horse heads towards the tent of Imam Hussein mourning. When the women see the horse alone without its rider, the reins are twisted. They come out of their tents, beating their cheeks, weeping in pain, humiliated after their dignity, and rushing to the body of Imam al-Hussein. At this point, Shimr came to him. He kicked him with his foot, sat on his chest, held his normal beard, hit him with his sword 12 times, and started cutting the head of Imam. "Oh my Imam, oh my master." Imam Hussein was not killed. He was not assassinated. He was slaughtered. "Oh, one who was killed, oh Imam Hussein, or one who was killed thirsty." The enemies were not done. The enemies then came to raid him. Al-Akhnas ibn Murtid took his turban. Al-Aswad ibn Khalid took his sandals. His sword was taken by Jum'ai. Then Bajdal came and saw the ring of Hussein covered in blood, but the ring could not come out because there was too much blood. So he cut off the Imam's finger and took the ring. Qais ibn al-Ash'at took his robe. After people raided the Imam, one of them enemies wanted to take his belt that was holding his pants, and which was a bit of a valuable belt. The man says, "I wanted to remove his belt, but the Imam's hand was over it. I could not remove his right hand, so I cut it off. But then his left hand was on the way. I could not remove it either, so I cut it off. And then I could not take the belt out, so I started to cut off his pants. At that point, I heard the earth shake, and I fainted. And while I fainted, I saw Fatima saying, 'Oh son, they killed you. May Allah kill them.' At that point, he left and runs away." ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين فسيعلمون الذين ظلموا على محمد انقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. A few lines of Ziyaratul Nahia. I hope tonight we get an opportunity to recite the Ziyarat of Nahia, where we say, Assalamu alayka ya khamisa ashabil kisa. Imam Hussain was the fifth of the Ashab al-Kisa, the baby of Fatima Zahra. When the incident of Kisa happens, he is the baby of the five. He is the youngest of the five. Picture the youngest in your family, how they are loved by everyone. Yes, that was Imam Hussain. Assalamu ala khamisi ashabil qisa. Assalamu ala gharib al-ghuraba. Assalamu ala shaheed al-shuhada. Assalamu ala qatil al-a'diya. Assalamu ala sakini Karbala. Peace be upon him who was slain by the individuals of illegitimate birth. Peace be upon the one who is at rest in Karbala. Peace be upon the blood-stained chests. Peace be upon the parched lips. Peace be upon the plucked souls. Peace be upon the snatched spirits. Peace be upon the stripped corpses. Peace be upon the pallid bodies. Peace be upon the gushing blood. Peace be upon the dismembered limbs. Peace be upon the heads raised upon the lances. Peace be upon the women exposed. Peace be upon the proof of the Lord of the worlds. Peace be upon you and upon your pure ancestors. Peace be upon you and upon your mastered sons. Assalamu ala sakini Karbala. And how is Imam buried in Karbala? If you approach the grave of Hussein and you were to look inside the grave of Hussein, you would see at the feet of Hussein a body that has been cut into pieces. That is the body of Aliyun al-Akbar. Then as you look at the body of Imam al-Hussein, what do you see? You see a body whose ribs have been destroyed, whose body was trampled by the hooves, whose body is nothing but a small remnant. But then you look at the chest and you say, what is that at the chest of Hussein? What is this object at the chest of Hussein? And somebody will say to you, this is the beheaded body of his 6-month son, Aliyun al-Asghar. Matam Hussein.